What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and our 2023 college football predictions continue for the 2023 college football season. Up next are the Vanderbilt Comedores, a team coming off a really decent season last year. Not just a really terrible season, it was a decent season last year for this Vanderbilt team in 2022. They went 5-7 last year, nearly almost making it to a bowl game. They were really competitive in the SEC, and I kind of expect this team to be really competitive once again this year. You look at overall this Vanderbilt team for 2023. My thoughts on them, I think, like I said, they're going to be competitive for 2023. Probably not going to make it to a bowl game depending on what the schedule is going to look like for them. But you look at their overall production coming back this year, 73% on the offensive side of the football, 56% on the defense. That's the side of the ball that really concerns me for this Vanderbilt team. But overall, they have about 65% of their production coming back, so about a decent amount of production coming back. But that offense is going to have a lot of talent. But they do lose, plenty of options at running back. They're going to have probably a hard time running the football there. That's probably going to be the weakness of this Vanderbilt offense. Passing game, I think, should be pretty strong for Vanderbilt, but looking at the schedule here, they'll play Hawaii, Alabama A&M, Wake Forest on the road, and UNLV on the road in the non-conference. So, again, not too tough of a non-conference schedule for the Commodores. Again, Wake Forest will be a tough one there on the road. And they do have 5 games here in the month of September, so they have to play 5 games. They do have a week 0 matchup against Hawaii, the same kind of matchup they had last year, and they blew that Hawaii team out. And you look at who they're playing outside of the SEC East. They'll play, of course, they'll play Ole Miss on the road. That's a game they play every single year against the Rebels. And then they'll play Auburn at home. So you got Auburn at home at least on November 4th. Not a tough draw, though, outside of the Big Ten West. They do play Ole Miss every year, but I don't think the Tigers of Auburn ain't really a tough draw there. But let's get right to the prediction here for this Vanderbilt team. Again, I think they'll be really competitive this year, but this schedule is still pretty tough for the Commodores. They'll play Hawaii and Alabama A&M to start out here. They'll play an August matchup here against Hawaii. That's a week 0 game like they did last year. Game was not close last year between these two teams, and then they'll play Alabama A&M the next week. I think Vanderbilt takes care of business in both of these games. I think these are 2 games where they should score maybe at least about 40 or 50 points in both of these games. So I think the offense will get off to a pretty good start with those 2 wins. And I got Vanderbilt starting out 2-0 for the 2023 season. Then they'll play Wake Forest on the road on September the 9th. This is the rematch from last year's regular season game. The game was not really close last year. I think, Vanderbilt by that time was just not really, better, but, they got better down the stretch here. I kind of expect this game to be a lot closer than it was last year. I don't think it will be a fourth quarter type game. I think Wake Forest has just got way too much talent on their roster, and obviously Vanderbilt, though, I think they'll compete for the first half, but second half, I think the Demon Deacons will pull away in the second half. I think Wake Forest's offense is just going to get to the Vanderbilt defense in that second half, and I think Wake Forest will pull away and win this one here at home against Vanderbilt. And I got Vanderbilt losing their first game of the season on the road at Wake Forest, but then they take care of business against UNLV on the road. I know that's a road game. We've seen Vanderbilt have some problems with non-conference teams in the past, but I think Vanderbilt will win that one, and they get to 3-1 to start out here in the month of September. Then they'll open up SEC play here against Kentucky here at home on September 23rd. This should be a pretty good matchup. We saw, Vanderbilt defeat Kentucky last year, and this is a tough one. This is a very tough game for Kentucky. I've already done predictions for Kentucky, and I did predict Kentucky to win this game. The reason why, I just think Kentucky has the better overall roster, plus they brought in some transfers to help them out, and they got Vanderbilt's former top running back there from last year at Kentucky. That's a huge loss for them, so yeah, Kentucky, I think, is going to be a pretty good team. They're going to want to run the football all over this Vanderbilt defense. I think Vanderbilt competes for the first half, and this game is kind of similar to the first half where, they compete with Wake Forest. Second half, though, I think it's all Kentucky in the second half. So with that being said, I'm going with the Wildcats here. I just do like Kentucky here to get a close win over Vanderbilt, but I think Vanderbilt will give Kentucky some problems in that first half. So I think Vanderbilt, like I said, will be competitive, but I think Vanderbilt will lose to Kentucky here at home on September 23rd. Then it's Missouri at home on September the 30th. Missouri's a team that has a lot of production coming back, especially on that defensive side of the football. Missouri is going to be probably one of the top defenses in the SEC this year. Maybe besides Georgia, they could probably be the second best team or the best defensive team in the country. But I did predict Vanderbilt to win this game. The reason why I think, because Vanderbilt, we've seen them give Missouri some problems in the past, and, I think it's going to be one of those games where they give Missouri some problems on the offensive side of the football. Plus, Vanderbilt, I think, will be motivated enough after that Kentucky loss where they were competing, but then they started to fall apart, but I think they'll kind of learn from that game. And with that being said, I think Vanderbilt wins a close one here over Missouri in a low-scoring type game, and they get their first SEC win of 2023 against Missouri here. Plus, it's a home game. I think the Vanderbilt crowd will be fired up in this one, even though it's not a big crowd, but I think Vanderbilt fans are pretty excited for what this season's going to be. And I got them improving to 4-2. Then it's Florida on the road here on October 7th. And this is kind of where the schedule kind of gets tougher for Vanderbilt. Florida especially on the road, but I think Vanderbilt's going to compete in this game. Even though it's on the road, Florida's got a lot of question marks. They're going to have options at quarterback. I mean, I'm really concerned about this Florida team this year, even if they probably won't make it to a bowl game. So, yeah, I think Vanderbilt will compete in this game. Like I said, it's kind of similar to the Kentucky and Wake Forest game. I think Florida will pull it away in the second half. And plus, this is a revenge game for the Gators, and I think Florida does win it here in a close one over Vanderbilt. So I think Vanderbilt does lose a close one there on the road at Florida, but they will compete. I think it's a low-scoring type game. I think Vanderbilt's defense will be ready by this time, and they'll probably get better by the month of October. Then they'll play Georgia at home on October 14th. I really don't see this game being all that close. I think this is probably, Vanderbilt's, biggest loss of the season so far. Especially playing at home, I don't really see Vanderbilt having a chance against Georgia. I think Georgia's just way too talented, and I think Georgia wins this one pretty easily over Vanderbilt. So I got Vanderbilt losing 2 straight to Florida and Georgia. That's tough back-to-back games there when you're going up against Florida and Georgia. That puts their record at 4-4. Then they'll play Ole Miss on the road on October 28th, and then get a bye week before playing this game. I think this is a pretty good spot for a bye week if you're a Vanderbilt fan. I think Vanderbilt's going to compete in this game. I think Ole Miss, they're going to have the offense to score those points in this one. The defense is kind of what concerns me about Ole Miss. I mean, they brought in a ton of transfers, though, to help them out on that offensive side of the football, and defensively a little bit as well on that side. But I think Vanderbilt is going to compete in this game. I think Vanderbilt will probably run the football a little bit on this Ole Miss defense. We've seen Ole Miss have a hard time with the running game in the first few years under Lane Kiffin. But this game is a close one, but I think Ole Miss will pull the way in the second half. I think Vanderbilt will compete, but I just think Ole Miss is the better overall team. And I got Vanderbilt losing 3 straight games to Florida, Georgia, and Ole Miss. That puts their record at 4-5. Then it's Auburn at home the next week here on November 4th. And this is kind of like the time where Vanderbilt, starts to play really well. We saw this from last year where they got a couple wins in the SEC in the month of November. And I think this is kind of one of those games where they start to compete once again. They'll be better by this time. And Auburn's a team that's kind of in a new era mode and a new rebuild. You got Hugh Freeze coming in. I think the offense for the Tigers is going to be really good. They got Peyton Thorne coming in, the transfer from Michigan State, to help them out. But I think Vanderbilt's going to compete in this game, and I already predicted Vanderbilt to win this game because I think it's just one of those games where Vanderbilt will win in the month of November. So with that being said, I think Vanderbilt wins a close one over the Tigers of Auburn. I know Auburn fans have not been really happy with my pick here, but it's one of those upset alert games, and I think Vanderbilt does win it here over the Tigers, and that puts their record at 5-5. And then it's back-to-back road games here with South Carolina and Tennessee. They get a bye week before the Tennessee game, but South Carolina is on the road, but we've seen Vanderbilt give trouble to South Carolina in the past. Could that be the case this year once again? I really don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think South Carolina just has way too much talent on their roster, but I think Vanderbilt's going to compete in this game. But I think South Carolina, with them being at home, it's a very tough place to play. And a couple years ago, Vanderbilt almost had a really good opportunity to beat South Carolina, but I'm going with the Gamecocks here to knock off Vanderbilt, and that puts Vanderbilt's record at 5-6. Then it's Tennessee on the road here. They get a bye week before playing this game. So they have 2 bye weeks on the schedule. Tennessee, though, this is kind of similar to the Ole Miss game. Tennessee's going to have the offense to score a ton of points. They're going to want to go hurry-up offense. They're wanting to pass the football on those. They're going to want to spread those wide receivers out. And Vanderbilt's had really a tough time stopping this offense of Tennessee. I just don't really see this game being all that close. I think Tennessee is just way too much talented on this roster. And that being said, I think Vanderbilt will lose their game here on the road at Tennessee. I don't really see this game being all that close, kind of similar to the Georgia game. So I think Georgia Georgia and Tennessee are probably their biggest losses of the season. But I got Vanderbilt finishing 5-7 for 2023. I have them at least getting a couple wins in the SEC. I think this is a really good Vanderbilt team. I'm not saying they're going to get to the SEC championship or maybe to a bowl game, but it's very possible this team can make it to a bowl game this year. I think, when you look at this roster, they do have a lot of talent, but let's be honest, it's a tough place. It's obviously a tough conference to play in the SEC, and I just think it's going to get to them. The schedule is still overall pretty tough for Vanderbilt, but I got Vanderbilt finishing 5-7 for 2023. Maybe next year they could probably make it to a bowl game, but maybe this year it's just not going to be enough. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below on this Vanderbilt team. What do you think their record is in 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.